Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this first day of out of four at Bergen Open. And this evening we will have synchronized diving from 3 meters, and we have actually we have four competitions in one. So we start with the men's 3 meter synchro with three divers, and then we have the women's 3 meter synchro, and there we have six starters, six pairs that starts, and then we have the boys 3 meters synchro, and we have also six competitors there or couples, and on the girls 3 meter we have 14 competitors and pairs, and in synchro we have 9 judges. 4 judges do the and we did 4 of the judges are doing the execution, and 5 judges are judging the synchronized diving. Okay, and let's start this competition. We have first from Denmark, Rasmus and Jonas. They are doing back dive pike. The first 2 rounds have limit. We have 2 required dives that is a limit. You can't have a higher degree of difficulty than 2.0. The first dive were a back dive pike, and it was really nice. Maybe not as synchronized as I would like to see. Next up is Switzerland. We have Kevin and Theobald, and they are also doing back dive pike. So in the synchronized competitions, both divers have to do good dives each, and also have to do it synchronized. It was good synchronized. Maybe their own dives were not as perfect as it could be, because it was a bit. The entry wasn't really clean, and now we have from Sweden we have Folke and Melker, and they are doing front 1.5 pike. That was lovely. They were really high. It was a good hurdle. They were high, and they had a nice entry. And okay, and now we are back to the. We are going over to the women's 3 meter synchro, and the first one are Stella and Greta, and they are doing back dive pike. So in the first 2 rounds, the total won't be changing so much, because all dives are 2.0 in degree of difficulty. But in round 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, they have their optional dives, and that means they can go as high as they like. Okay, and from South Africa we have Sarah and Rachel. They are doing back dive tuck. Both are a bit short, and most of the couples are doing it in pike, and they do this in tuck. And they score around 4s and between 4 and 6s on that dive, both executed and synchronized. Now we have Celia and Elisa, and they are doing back dive pike. Celia is a bit further out of the diving board, but overall it's a really nice dive. And maybe not, the dives are not as high as they could be, and it's a bit too far away from the board. Now we have Alexandra and Lena, and they are also from Norway, and they are also doing back dive pike. Good job on this one. The individual dives, 6s, 5.5, and synchro 7. Okay. And from South Africa, we have Olivia and Dillian, back dive tuck. Both divers are a bit short, so they are not ready. They didn't finish the dive, so they are both short, and that's why we see the lower scores around 3.5 and 4. And another pair from South Africa, we have Catherine and Isabella, and they are doing back dive pike. So the women, the boys and the girls, they are doing 2 plus 3, so they have 5 dives. And then when the men is, they have 6 rounds, so they have 2 plus 4. And with this dives, the women finished their first round, a back dive pike. Quite okay, maybe a bit splashy in the end, but okay. And from Turkey, we have Ahmet and Arda, and they are doing front 1.5 pike. They managed to do that pretty okay. One of the guys had a really bad hurdle, so he couldn't press the board as much as he would like. You have to be keen to the diving board. But the synchronization was alright. Next up we have from Finland, it's Aino and Veka, and they are doing inward dive pike. That was beautiful. They were good synchronized, and they did both good dives as well. And from Sweden we have Artem and Jacob, and they are doing forward 1.5 somersault pike. Bit too far away from the board. One of them is even further away. So you will see that in the synchronize. Because the goal is that you only see one diver, even if there are two on the board. Next up we have Bennett and Nathan, and they are doing back dive pike. A decent start from the Americans, and now we have Marius and Janice, and they are doing back dive pike tuck. Back dive tuck. One of the dives was short and the other one was a bit over, so you will see that in the points of the judges and also in the individual dives that it's a bit different. And now we go over to the girls 3 meter synchro. First up it's Emma and Amanda from Sweden, and they are doing front 1.5 pike. Also a decent start from the Swedish girls. Good hurdles. Yeah. Not sure what I'm gonna say more. Like I said earlier on our live stream, that please be patient with me because it's been a while since I've been comment diving. And on the board now we have Vilma and Isabel, and they are doing back 1.5 somersaults with a half twist. That was good. They didn't land in the same line, but in the air you did only see one diver. So they got scores around between 5.5 and 7.5 from that dive. From Switzerland we have Melanie and Apollonie, and they are doing inward dive pike. A bit too far away from the board. Heloise and Savannah from Switzerland are doing back dive pike. A good start from the Swiss girls. From Croatia, we have Dolores and Annika, and they are doing inward dive pike. The girl closest to us, when she landed, she didn't focus on her core enough, and that's why it goes over. Otherwise, she would have got higher scores. From Switzerland, we have Serena and Valentina, and they are doing inward dive pike. I like that. I like that dive really much. They look comfortable, and it was a nice inward dive hike. Good effort. And from South Africa, we have Olivia and Dillian. They were doing a forward 1.5 somersault. They didn't get the hurdles working pretty much. I'm not sure what happened there. And from Sweden, we have Nora and Zoe, and they are doing back dive pike. Beautiful execution from both of them. It's a decent start for the girls from Sweden. And now we have from Switzerland, Anna and Julia, and they are doing inward dive pike. You won't see much difference on these two first rounds because everyone are having similar dives. The only thing that will change and be different is the judging. And we have Sarah and Rachel from South Africa. They are doing back dive chuck. Representing Canada, we have Alexandra and Daniela, and they are doing back 1.5 somersault, half twist. That was a nice back 1.5 half twist. They did really good. A good start. They are twisting at the same time and landing in a straight line as well. And representing the United States, we have Elizabeth and Olivia, and they are doing reverse dive pike. That was a good save for both of them. Representing Sweden, we have Mika and Julie. They are doing back dive pike. The girl further away did a really good job on her back dive pike. And the other one, the closer one, she her dive were a bit over, and that's why she wasn't awarded with the same points as the other one. From Netherlands, we have Sophie and Marie, and they are doing back dive pike. Moving on to round 2, we have the men. From Denmark, we have Rasmus, Paul Amtoft, and Jonas Hamza Helms, and they are doing front forward 1.5 somersault with 1 twist. Well executed. Both a bit splashy in the entries, and the synchronization, they didn't land at the same time. From Switzerland, Kevin Signa and Thibaut Bocher, and they are doing reverse dive pike. Beautiful dive of both of them. They did a really good job there. A bit struggle on the board. It was overall a really nice dive from both of them. Well done. And Folke and Melker from Sweden, they do reverse dive pike. Nicely done. They are not really synchronized on the board, but they managed to land pretty much at the same time. We're going over to the women. We have first Stella Raneri and Greta Signorello, and they are doing reverse dive pike. Fortunately, both of them missed their hurdles, so they didn't have so much to work with. They actually got higher scores than I thought they would be. And from South Africa, we have Sarah and Rachel, and they are doing back 1.5 somersault, half twist. Celia and Elisa, they are doing reverse dive pike. The Norwegians, they did a good job. A bit. They have two different hurdles, so it doesn't look the same on the board. And a nice save from one of them because she was really going over, and she saved it. Really nice. And got a nice entry as well. Alexandra and Lina are also doing reverse dive pike. Also a good save from one of them. The hurdle was a bit wobbly, but managed to do a good job anyways. Olivia and Dylan from South Africa doing reverse dive tuck. And now we have Catherine and Isabella, and they're doing reverse dive pike. Decent dive for both of them. Still, a lot of them don't have. It's not friends with the board today. It looks like because many of the divers are struggling with the hurdles. And now we have Amit and Arda, and they are also doing reverse dive pike. A bit too far away from the board, both of them are, but they manage to take the dives down really nicely, and decent dive from the guys from Finland. And now we have Artem and Jacob, and they're doing forward, one half somersault, one twist. Both dives were a bit over. And that's why the points are low, both in the execution judges from the executed and the synchronized judges. Bennett and Nathan doing reverse dive pike. And from Switzerland we have Marius and Janice, and they are doing reverse dive tuck. And moving on to the girls. Emma and Amanda, they're doing inward dive pike. Overall, alright dive. Since we have different age group during the same competition, you will see the difference between how high they jump, and that's because some of them hasn't as many muscles as the other divers have. From Sweden, we have Vilma and Isabel doing back dive pike. That was beautiful from them. They did really good. Sixes and 6.5 and 7s from the judges. Melanie and Apolline, they're doing back dive pike. Dolores and Annika, they are doing back dive pike. Nicely done of both of them. Nice entry, good takeoff and a nice entry. Switzerland's Serena and Valentina, they are doing back dive pike. It was a nice dive from the Swiss girls. One of them was about to lose her balance in the start, but she managed to correct that and did a nice dive even anyways. Olivia and Dylan are doing inward dive pike. Here we see both individual dives and the synchro dives were not as good as all the other dives we have seen. They are not synchronized, not even on the board. But next one, Zoe and Nora, they are doing reverse dive pike. Also a bit struggle with the hurdle, but fixed it much better than the couples right before. Anna and Julia, back dive pike. Both were a bit short. The one closest to us, she was a little bit more short. And that's why, because in the beginning, she leans backwards instead of jumping up, so she doesn't get to start the rotation instead of just get your feet up in the air and then just drop the dive. Sarah and Rachel are doing back 1.5 somersaults, half twists. A bit wobbly in the air. Looks like one of the girls started to twist before she left the board. Yeah, and she did. Now we have Alexandra and Daniela, and they're doing back dive pike. That was good from the Canadians. They did really nice. A good hurdle. Both had a good hurdle. They were high. They did a nice dive, and they took them down pretty good. Elizabeth and Olivia are doing back 1.5 somersault, half twist. Not as synchronized as they would like. The dives were right, but the synchronization wasn't. One of them landed before the other one, and as I said before, the goal is that it only looks like one diver in the air, and it's a great synchronized dive. Like that one. It was Nika and Julie, and they were doing the inward dive pike. Just nice straight legs, nice feet. Yeah, it was nice, it was lovely. Sophie and Marie, they are doing reverse dive pike. One was a bit short, and the other one was a little bit over. I think they start to do the hurdles better now in the event, and that finish round 2. So we are going back. Now we start with a higher difficulties, and you will see that, and the scores will be different. And Rasmus and Jonas are doing forward 2.5 somersaults pike. Get 6s in the execution and 5.5, 6 in the synchronization. Both did good jobs on the dives, but it's not as synchronized as you would like, and the entries could have been more cleaner. Kevin and Tibet, they are doing inward dive, inward 2.5 somersault pike. Good job from the Swiss men. It was, I think it was really synchronized. Maybe one of them was a bit further away from the board. And now we have the Swedes, Folke and Melcher, and they are doing the same dive, inward 2.5 somersault pike. So one of them, the closest one to us, he did a nice dive, and the other one, in the entry, he tucked in his head, so it rolls over more than it should do. But it was alright. I think Stella and Greta, they are doing back 1.5 somersault with 1.5 twist. Both were a bit short. The twist was really nice, but they were a bit short. They didn't get the rotation right after the twist, so they could take the dive down. Sarah, Rachel, doing front, forward, 2.5 somersault, tuck. And I think I have to take it back about the hurdles, because now, unfortunately, I really wish you could see diving when they have these perfect hurdles and everything just looks smooth and easy. Like any dives is really simple and nice to look at. But we still have some rounds to go, and I hope you'll get to see that. Celia, Elisa, doing inward 1.5 somersault pike. Good job, lady. So one of the dives, the pikes are really tight and really nice. One of them is going a bit under, and the one is short and the other one is over, and that's why they don't get so high score on the execution. Alexandra and Lena, they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults pike. They don't have the same hurdle, so it doesn't look symmetric on the board. But they do take off at the same time. But since they didn't get the best hurdles, one of them were very short. Olivia and Dillian are doing forward 1.5 somersault pike. Catherine and Isabella are doing inward 1.5 somersaults pike. Both of them were a bit slow. I would like to see them finish the dive over the diving board. but it was okay. And now we have Amit and Arda. They're doing forward 2.5 somersaults pike. And we are back. Emma and Amanda doing back 1.5 somersault, half twist. Both were a bit far away from the board, and one of them was even more further away. So the points will be pretty low on that one. And they were also slightly over. Vilma and Isabel doing back 2.5 somersault tuck. The synchronization was really nice on that dive because it looked like one diver, and you can see that on the judges as well. And both were a bit higher in the entries, but like I said, it was a nice synchronized dive. Melanie and Appeline, they're doing back 1.5 somersaults, half twist. gets 4s and 5s and 5.5, 6. Also looked like one of the girls started the twisting on the board. So like she didn't finish pushing off the board, or jump off the board before she starts twisting. And then it looks a bit wobbly in there. Eloise and Savannah, they are doing back 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Dolores and Annika, they are doing back 1.5 somersaults, half twists. They both did good dives each, but they have different takeoffs on them, so the synchronization isn't as good as it could be. Serena and Valentina, they are doing forward 2.5 somersault tuck. Both were a bit short. So they weren't finished, and they tilt on their heads, and then they roll over a lot, even though it looked like it would be short. And we have Olivia and Dillian, and they are doing reverse dive tuck. All right dive. They don't have the as high degree of difficulty as the other ones, but their dives are all right and good. Now we have Nora and Zoe, and they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults pike. That was good, decent. A good day at the office dive. It was a nice synchronization. They both get off the board good. They have a nice and tight pike, and they both had good entries. Slightly over on both of them. Now we have Anna and Julia, and they are doing back 1.5 somersaults with half twists. So Anna and Julia did back 1.5 with a half twist. A bit splashy in the entries, and that's why you get so low scores. Sarah and Rachel, they do inward 1.5 somersault pike. They started at the same time, but one is not finishing the work on the board, and so she doesn't get as high as the other one. Now we have Alexandra and we have Daniela, and they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults pike. Okay, now we're ready for Alexandra and Daniela. Forward to have some salt. Pike position. So the synchronization was really good. One of the girls did a nice dive, and the other one is just didn't straighten her body in the entry, so it looked as clean as the other one, but it was still a good dive. Elizabeth and Olivia, they are doing inward double tuck. So when you land on your feet in diving, there are some rules. You have to land with your arms down. If you would land with them over your head, you don't get as high scores at that one. So they did a good job. It's kind of hard to do the double and land on your feet because you're supposed to spot the water and then you know where you are in the air. But when you're doing double, you don't see the water as good. So it's a more like counting and feeling and guessing where you are in the air. Nika and Julie, they did inward 1.5 somersault pike, and they did really good. Sophie and Marie, they are doing inward 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Sorry, we have a bit of technical issues, so you can't see the replay. And now we have round 4. Rasmus, Jonas, they're doing back 2.5 somersaults, tuck. We have some technical problems right now, so I can't see the recap. And to be honest, I actually missed the dive, so hopefully I will be able to see it and give my thoughts about it. Kevin and Thea, they are doing forward 3.5 somersaults pike. Decent dive from both of them. They are not as the same in the air, but they managed to get the dives done. Both of them landed straight with a nice entry. Folke and Melker, they are doing forward 3.5 somersaults pike. So they did a good job. Folke, that is close to us, he was doing a really nice front 3.5. Melker, he tilt in his head in the entries, so it rolls over. But overall, a good dive. And Stella and Greta, they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults, pike. Their individual dives were good, but the synchronization, it was a bit. The takeoff wasn't at the same time, so they never managed to get together in the air, and then the whole picture, the whole diving picture, as in synchronized diving, wasn't as lovely as it's supposed to be. Sarah and Rachel are doing inward 1.5 somersaults, pike. You can see they are starting. They don't start at the same time on the board, so it's quite hard for them to be synchronized with that, and they were both a bit short. Celia and Elisa are doing back 1.5 somersaults, half twists. Beautifully done. Both a bit short, but overall an all right dive, a decent dive. And now we have Alexandra and Lina. They are doing inward 1.5 somersaults, tuck. I really liked their entries, both of them. It was really nice. Bit short of one of them, and the one is slightly over, but a nice entry. Overall, a good dive. Olivia and Dylan, they are doing inward 1.5 somersaults with tuck. And now we're back with the relays. Nicely done. One of the girls were really much over. She didn't get the takeoff as she would like. And we go to Catherine and Isabella. They're doing forward 2.5 somersaults, pike. You're synchronized in the beginning on the board as well, but one of them is diving higher than the other one, so that's why in the air they don't look as one, so you see two different divers in the air. Now we have Amit and Arda, and they are doing inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. don't think they are happy with that dive. One of them did a good inward 2.5, but the other one, he stick out his bum in the beginning and he doesn't get the rotation as he needs, and he goes very short. Ino and Veka, they're doing back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. That was good. It was a nice dive from both of them. And they get awarded with 6.5s till 7.5s. Artem and Jacob, back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. In synchronized diving, you have one of the divers are starting to count. And normally they say 1, 2, 3, go, so they know how to start. Some of them doesn't even use their arms the same way, and you have seen during the competition that they don't do this exactly the same hurdle. But normally, for the whole picture, it would be better if you have the same hurdle, but as long as you get off the board at the same time, you manage to be synchronized, it's fine. Bennett and Nathan, they did the forward 3.5 somersaults with tuck. Both were over. So that's why they didn't get awarded with a higher score. Marius and Janice, they are doing inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Both were a bit too far away from the boards, but they both were. One of them was even more further away from the board, but both their dives were really good, but they were too far. That's why they didn't get awarded higher scores than they did. And now we have Emma and Amanda. They are doing back 1.5 somersaults with tuck. So in the takeoff, both of the girls were taking the shoulders back so they can start the rotation faster, and they will get the rotation faster. But I would say they could stand on the board longer, because if they get higher, it will be easier to do the dive. Vilma and Isabel, they are doing reverse 2.5 somersaults, stuck. It's nicely saved, one of them. So they still struggle with the hurdles. You see one of the girls, she has about 15 centimeters to the edge of the board, and then it's really hard to do reverse 2.5 somersaults. You can see her reaction when she's looking at her coach after the dive. Melanie and Apolline, they are doing forward 1.5 somersaults with 1 twist. They are very synchronized on the board, and they do the twisting at the same time. But one is jumping higher than the other one, and then one of them is landing in the water before the other one. Heloise and Savannah, they are doing inward 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Both are a bit slow, unfortunately. I think they can do much better. Dolores and Annika, they are also doing inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. So during the inward dives, I know that many divers, me included, were afraid to be too close to the board. So some of us were always trying to pushing it out, but normally you don't have to do it because the board do the work. They push you out enough so you are never too close. The inward dives we saw were good, and now we have Serena and Valentina, and they are doing inward 1.5 somersaults with pike. Beautiful done. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I think the dives were really good, but judges doesn't agree with me because I think they should have scored higher than that. Olivia and Dillian, they are doing back 1.5 somersaults with half twists. Yeah, you saw the girls that didn't really do as they was practiced, and they almost failed the dive. You saw that some of them actually, one of the judges actually scored a 0 on that dive, and that means that the dive is not the dive she was supposed to do. Now we have Zoe and Nora, and they are doing inward should have some salts tuck. Unfortunately, one of them is not kicking out as early as she does, so she rolls. Her dive was so much more over than the other one, but they had a good takeoff. The only thing is that she has to kick out the dive earlier, so she can finish it. She has enough of time to do it. We have Anna and Julia, and they are doing forward 1.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Decent dive from both of them. And why does... Okay, so one of them is actually twisting in the end, and that's why she scores lower. I didn't see that, so I'm sorry about that. We have Sarah and Rachel, and they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Alexandra and Daniela, they are doing back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. somersaults girls did all right back 2.5 somersaults. One of them you did a good one. She didn't focus on both of them didn't focus on their core enough in the entries, so both of them went over. One got slightly over and the other one was much over. Elizabeth and Olivia are doing back 1.5 somersault pike. Here we had a really good synchronized dive. And they did score good on the dives as well. I think that was really good. Good job, girls. Nika and Julia doing forward 2.5 somersaults with pike positions. I'm sorry, 105B forward 2.5 somersaults pike. Unfortunately, that didn't go well. Too good. One is struggling really hard with her hurdle because she didn't land on the edge of the board. She had about 20 centimeters from the end of the board, and that is really hard to do any dives. It doesn't matter how strong you are and how many times you've done the dive. It's just hard to do a hurdle when it's not. You don't get the power enough from the board to help you do the dive. Sophie and Marie, they did forward 2.5 somersaults with pike. They are synchronized on the boards, and then also one of the girls had struggled with her hurdle. And now we go on the round 5, so this will be the last round for the women's, the boys and the girls on their events, and then the men's have one more round. And they are doing a reverse 2.5 somersaults, tuck. The men also struggles with their hurdles, so they are not. One of them couldn't do their arms in the beginning in the takeoff as they would like to do. So then it's hard to do your dive when you can't start the rotation. Kevin and Thibaut, they're doing forward 2.5 somersaults, pike position. And here we have when you do a restart, the judges are judging like they normally do, but the computer system and the technical system reduces and take away 2 points. So if they now score 5s, the actual score will be 3s. And they managed to do that second attempt. Good. Maybe it was good for them to do a restart. We'll see what the judges say. So they got 6s, 5.5s. So overall, even if they did a restart, it was quite okay. Now we have Folke and Melker, and they do back 2.5 somersaults with pike positions. Sorry, I'm kidding. Back 2.5 somersaults with pike. Nicely done. So they don't look like they are doing it synchro, but they do it synchro. But one of them is jumping so much higher, so that's why. And now we have the final round for the women's. And Stella and Greta, they are finishing their competition with the inward 1/2 somersaults with pike position. Nice finish for Stella Renavi and Greta Signolo from Italy. They get a total amount of 193.98 points. Sarah and Rachel, they are doing reverse 1/2 somersaults tuck. Not to finish, they would have wanted. It's a bit struggling on the hurdles again. I'm sorry that I feel really sorry for them that they can't do the hurdles as good as they can doing during practice that they do and like now they're doing in the competition. And Celia and Elsa, they are finishing up with forward 2.5 somersaults pike. They managed to do a really. The dives look similar. I mean, both had this splashy entry. Yeah, well, thank you. Alexandra and Lina, they are finishing with back 1/2 somersaults with 1.5 twists. One of them starting twisting earlier than the other one, and the other one. So the other one is one of them is much higher in the air than the other one is, and that's why this didn't score as high as they could have done on that dive. Olivia and Dillian, they are doing back 1/2 somersault with half twist. I'm sorry, that was a failed dive. And a failed dive means they scored 0 on that dive. Catherine and Isabella, they are finishing up with back 1/2 somersault with 1/2 twist. Free position. Also a decent finish from South African girls. They are during the takeoff. They are at the same time, but it looks like I think one of them is a bit higher, so she jumps higher, and then they, in the end, it makes them not land at the same time. And Ahmed and Arda, they are finishing their competition with back 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Also not as synchronized as they would like it to be. One of them is not jumping as high as that one, but the execution were pretty alright for both of them. Aino and Vika, they are finishing up with reverse 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Nicely done with the hurdle. One of them just completely missed his hurdle. But he managed to do the dive a bit short, and that one was slightly over, but I still think he managed to do it pretty okay with the hurdle. Artem and Jacob, they are also finishing with reverse 2.5 somersault tuck. They both kicked out a bit too early. No, sorry. They kicked out too late. So it's over-rotate and it goes over. But still, they got around between 4.5 till 6 on that. And now and Bennett and Nathan, they are doing forward 1.5 somersaults, 1 twist. Free position. A very nice finish for the Americans. So still has a bit struggle with the hurdles. One of them, the one closest to us, but he managed to complete the dive good. Anyways, Marius and Janis, they are doing forward 1.5 somersaults, 1 twist, free position. Also finishing up this competition nicely. I think we will see even higher scores than the previous dive. And with it, nice hurdles. They are synchronized in the air and both have nice entries. And now we have the girls and their last dive. Emma and Amanda, they are doing inward 1.5 somersaults, pike. Also a good finish for Emma and Amanda. Vilma and Isabel, they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults, pike. Also a good finish for the Swedish girls. One of them little bit struggle with a hurdle, but fix it good, and they scored 6.5, 7 on their dives and execution and synchronizations. And Melanie and Applein, they are finishing up with forward 2.5 somersaults. Tuck. I think one of the girls actually did better than only scores 4 on that. It was maybe they don't have as much height as the other people, but still as the other divers, but they still do good dives. And we have Heloise and Savannah, and they are wrapping their competition up with forward 2.5 somersaults pike. Both of them were over. One of them was a bit more over than the other one. Also struggled a little bit with the hurdles. And after when they kick out and preparing for their entry, they just tilt their head down and it rolls over even more. Dolores and Annika, they are finishing up with forward 2.5 somersaults tuck. One of the girls got lost in the air. She did double instead of 2.5. Let's see this recap, what's going on. So it's a failed dive, unfortunately. Serena and Valentina, they are doing forward 1.5 somersaults with 1 twist. A good finish. The girls for Serena Bosch and Valentina Bosch. Well, a decent finish for them. A bit splashy in the end. And now we have Olivia and Dillian. Back dive with tuck. One of the girls hit the board with her feet on that dive. Yeah, well, not hit. She touched it. She touched the board. Nora and Zoe, they are finishing up with back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists, free position. It was a good finish for them. A bit too far away from the board of both of the girls. And I think one of them actually twisted in the end, and that's why she only scores 3.5 and 4.5. But the synchronization was good. And Anna and Julia, they are finishing up with forward 2.5 somersaults, tuck. Both were a bit short, and that means they didn't finish their rotation in the dive. The one closest to us, she actually kicked out a bit too early, and that's why she didn't manage to get it down in the right way. Sarah and Rachel, they are doing reverse 1.5 somersaults with tuck. Also struggling a little bit with their hurdles, unfortunately. And both managed to do the reverse 1.5 anyways, but still, we want diving to look smooth. We want it to be nice. It's beautiful, and we want it to be easy as well. And that dive didn't look that easy. Alexandra and Daniela finishing with inward 2.5 somersaults, tuck. A good finish for them. They are not starting at the same time on the board, but they do the takeoff at the same time, and they have the same spin in the rotation, and they land at the same time. Elizabeth and Olivia, they are doing forward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. They both kicked out a bit too early, but they are synchronized, but both dives were a bit short. Nike and Julie, they are finished their competition with back 1.5 somersault with 1.5 twists. A strong finish for Nike and Julie. We'll see what the judges say. 172.56. And Sophie and Marie, they are also finishing up with back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists. One of them were short and the other one over. So one over-rotated and the one under-rotated. And now the last 3 dives in this competition, we have Rasmus and we have Jonas from Denmark, and they are finishing their competition with inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. An okay finish for them. They are both jumping off the board too far away, and they have a nice spin, but not as clean entries as we would like. They had flat feet, and it was splashy. Now we have Kevin and Thibaut. They are doing forward 2.5 somersaults with double twist pike position. one did a really nice dive of them, the one closest to us, and the other one, he couldn't stop his rotation, so he gets over in the entry. And the last dive, we have Folke and Melker, and they are also finishing with forward 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists, pike. Good finish for the Swedish guys. One of them was a bit short. He didn't get the takeoff as he would like. And my name is Martina, and thank you for hanging out with us during this live stream. And we will be back soon for the next event that will be mixed 3-meter synchro. So thank you and welcome back.